All right, this is Sane Means, Witten Watson, Witten Sullivan Watson. If you're not into the whole brevity thing, and I'm going to be doing a review. Going to be reviewing here Leda Art Supply Sketchbook. This particular one, there are a few of them. This is the largest, or this is the extra large size. So this comes in, right, just dealing with the cover here, and we'll deal with the pages in a moment. So you're looking at 8.5 by 11.5. The cover here, this is the Zeus sketchbook. So it's the largest one, obviously. There's a nice, there's a nice card included with some information about the product and about the sketchbook, and a tale of Leda, Leda and the swan. Zeus transforms himself into a swan to seduce Leda, and of course, the gods do not make love in vain, so the union is fruitful, and Helen of Troy is born. So as I say, so to return to the sketchbook, well, so that's nice. So this is, so again, card that comes with it, as you can see. And definitely something that would make a decent bookmark, always worth considering. All right, so. Okay, as I said, this is the extra large. That's relatively straightforward. Again, the Zeus model, the Zeus format, the Zeus sketchbook. All right, so to start with, so this is softbound, not a hardbound sketchbook, as you can see, right? Floppy, right? Bendy, which I think is a real advantage to it. Get into that more in a moment. The surface is great. It's very grippy, very tactile, very not slippery at all. Has an excellent feel to it. I think the grip, the feel that it has, it's really something quite noticeable about the sketchbook, and something really, it's pretty cool. I haven't seen any others like that, and if you like that more than, say, like a slick cover, that's something worth considering. Let me just say up front, one of the main things I like about the sketchbook is that it's a very nice compromise between a hardbound and something that's too light. It's pretty substantial. It's pretty, it's pretty substantial. You can have a pretty solid, something pretty solid to draw on. It'll hold up. It's not going to flop all over the place. At the same time, it's not a hardbound, right? As I say, it can be bent, right? It's flexible. And that's for me at least, that's a real advantage. Sometimes I've taken sketchbooks rather far afield, gone out hiking, for example, and gone several miles. And so this is something that I was really able to throw into a pack much easier than, say, a hardbound. There's great things about hardbound sketchbooks. I certainly have nothing against them. They're wonderful in their way. I just think something like this is a much easier carry, a much easier daily carry. Also, if you want to consider carrying something like this, making something like this your daily carry, you could obviously look at smaller sizes. I don't think this is not that large. As I said, it's 8.5 by 11.5. For me, that's really not that large a sketchbook to lug around, but it depends on you. Obviously, that is a personal choice. So, all right, so that's the cover, the setup there. Okay, so moving on, right, getting into the sketchbook, as it were. One really excellent feature of this is it truly lies flat. As you can see, effortlessly, right? It's very easy to open up the sketchbook, have it lie flat. It's a really nice feature of this sketchbook. It's really well designed for that. Let's see. It's 160 pages. So pretty significant, pretty good number of pages. The paper, okay. So obviously this is very important. Paper is 120 grained, 81 pound sketchbook paper. It's very nice paper. It's quite smooth. Yeah, there's a slight tooth to it, but really, it's definitely, I would say, as far as sketchbooks go, on the smooth side. So consider that, right? If you want something with more tooth, this is perhaps not for you. The pages are pretty, I would call them, if you're familiar with the Moleskine sketchbooks, I'd say it's a lighter, they're not as heavy as the Moleskine sketchbooks pages, although they're pretty heavy. I would say they're akin to that, right? They're akin to the Moleskine pages. Definitely not as thick, definitely have a similar kind of feel. Corners are rounded like the Moleskine sketchbooks, which is also, I think, nice. I think that's a good feature. So as I say, quite smooth, not a lot of tooth. Again, you're going to want to consider that if you want more tooth. Another aspect, another thing to consider, so there's a pocket here. Right, there's a pocket in the back. Throw whatever you wish in there. I don't know. I've never really used. I always forget those things are there. I always forget the pockets, whatever there, and I never make use of them. But maybe you do. So good to know it's there. And there's, of course, right again similar to the Moleskine. There's this guy, this strap. I'm not even sure what to call this, but this is good. It's a nice feature. Right, simply to stop the sketchbook from flopping over, makes it quite easy to carry, makes it quite convenient to carry. Honestly, again, I pretty much forget to use this, although sometimes I remember. And it is a nice feature, right? It's something nice to have, and if you don't want to use it, yeah, it's pretty easy just to have it tucked away. And you can forget about it. So let's see. I'll move on then to actually trying out some materials on it, give you an idea. So 5B pencil, nothing particularly exotic or interesting. All right. But you can see that there's a decent contrast between the 5B and the paper. I would call the paper, it's something akin, it's somewhat creamy, although not really. I definitely would not call it blinding white. It's somewhat creamy, perhaps something of a subdued white or an acceptable kind of cream color. I don't know how well, I hope you can see it well enough for that. So that's how that's how the 5B turns out. Okay, this is just a stand. This is kind of a junky, not particularly interesting Pilot pen. I wanted to go with something that everyone would have some. Everyone has pens like this, or everyone's used pens like this. And as you can see, yeah, it has a good. It's going to do well against the paper. I'm not going to do watercolor here today. I've done watercolor with these sketchbooks, and it's done pretty well. I don't know, the write-ups talk about using light watercolor. Lighter watercolor always seems light to me, so I'm not quite sure how to interpret that. I used watercolor; it was fine. Honestly, yeah, it did quite well. It's perfectly acceptable for watercolor, especially in a sketchbook. And if you're going to be doing more serious watercolor sketches, right, I think pretty obviously, then you're into actually buying watercolor paper, actually buying a sketchbook that has watercolor paper. This is a felt tip pen and a pretty old, and a vintage kind of rote ring situation I have here. So you can see how the felt pen does. It's fine. I don't think you're going to find a whole lot of difference in sketchbooks. Obviously, in terms, with this kind of, it's a lot like the Moleskine, I would say. So if you're familiar with that, you can expect that. As you can see, yeah, there's some tooth smudging does pretty well. You can definitely get some decent effects. I would say these sketchbooks are really great for pencil, and in part, admittedly, that's because I prefer pencil probably to everything else. But really, they're excellent sketchbooks for whatever you want. Yeah. So mechanical pencil here, Pentel 207. Yeah, and it's excellent as well, right? This is 2B. So as you can see, right, it also comes across very dark. I think it's a very nice feature of the sketchbook, thinking about pencils, also with pens. The darks are going to come across very dark, which is good because then you can take them down, right? The 5B, it's going to produce a very dark mark against the paper. It's going to look very dark, and then of course you can simply lighten up on the pressure, right, and produce a lot, much lighter effects. So I think the paper is especially good for that, right? So as you can see there, and another, I probably will add another review and do some Conte, maybe some chalk, maybe some colored pencils. In terms of, all right, so something I think everyone always sort of wonders about. Suppose I want to take a sketchbook page out, how easy is it to remove? How much damage am I going to do to the sketchbook? So I'm going to say here, in my experience, what I would do if you really need to take pages out of this. Really, honestly, what I would suggest, if you think, I guess I would try and chop it up into two sketchbooks. If you have a dedicated sketchbook, you're not going to take pages out of, at least not till you're done with it, at least not till right, you've reached the final page. Then you can tear it apart, take the pages out, do whatever you want with them. But in my experience, anytime, except with a spiral sketchbook, and even then, except with a spiral sketchbook, when you take pages out, there's a downside to it. There's a cost, although it's not a real big cost. Here, however, well, it's not really. You're going to want to watch that you don't cut the binding here. Right? If you cut, I hope you can see, but if you cut in too close here, you're going to cut looks like string, looks like thread. You're going to cut into the binding. The pages are going to come loose. And if you're fine with that, great. If you're not fine with that, then that's going to be a problem. What I would suggest, I'm going to use, I'll return to this card. What I would suggest if you want to take pages out, take a piece of mat board, take a piece of cardboard, what have you, slide it in here, right? Simply put it underneath the page. This is pretty obvious. I'm sure many of you have thought of this, but just in case you haven't, take your straight edge well away from the binding, and then go ahead and cut it out. Right, go ahead and cut there, cutting through the sketchbook paper into the cardboard or into the mat board below. That's really going to be the best way to take the page out. Of course, you're going to be left with a slight fringe here, right, with a bit of the paper. It's not, but that would be fine. Right? That's not really going to affect anything. Certainly, it's not going to cut into the binding. You're not going to have loose pages coming out, which is something you probably don't want. So as I say, this is my favorite sketchbook right now. Why? Well, in part because of the reasons I've told you, but why do I like it better than others? Okay, so first of all, the price point, it's pretty decent, I think. Talking about $23, $24. And if you can do better than that, that's awesome. Sure, certainly, congratulations on that. That would be swell. that's a personal thing, right? How much you want to sketch. There are sketchbooks where you can spend a lot less. There are sketchbooks where you can get a lot more paper. It really is just a personal choice, and it really is also just a question of how do you want to spend your money. If you dinner out, right, dinner in a restaurant, takeout, certainly this guy, like I would have to think one evening out at a restaurant, one skipping, right? For example, one evening out at a restaurant, skipping doing one meal takeout. Yeah, you could buy one of these, right? 24 bucks. I mean, what takeout pizza? You're talking $30 or something like that. I'm not really sure. I honestly don't patronize restaurants a lot. Perhaps I should. But so, it's going to be a matter of your own personal finances. But yeah, you're looking at 24 bucks, 22 bucks if you do better. But I would say you're probably in the 24, 25 area with shipping and so forth. Yeah, 24 bucks, right, I would say. Again, what do I really like about this sketchbook? Quality of the paper, right? That is paramount. It's very good quality paper. It's very nice feel. It's very nice to work with. It's great with pencil, I think. It's great with pen. Watercolor, I thought was fine for a sketchbook. Again, if you're serious about watercolor, I think you're going to want to use serious watercolor paper. For a sketchbook, I think it's great. It has an excellent feel to it. I think the grip that it has is just awesome. I haven't really seen this in other sketchbooks, and I think it's pretty fantastic. It's a very nice, I think, the problem is a very nice compromise between floppy sketchbooks that don't really have any structure or have very little structure, very little heft to them, and hardbound monstrosities. Monstrosities is too harsh. I found that the hardbound sketchbooks are really kind of a pain to lug around. It's not even that they're particularly heavy, but if you're going to throw them in a pack with other things and you're lugging around something hardbound, it's going to be a lot. This is going to be a lot easier. I mean, this is flexible. You can toss this in a pack that has like a sweatshirt, a water bottle, your lunch, right? Other stuff in it. It's a lot easier to cram this in to a pack. And also just honestly, it's lighter. I mean, especially if you're doing a long trip. And if you're out for a while, the weight will start to tell on you. I've definitely gone on hikes. I've definitely been out with heavy-duty sketchbooks. And after a while, I was like, man, this thing actually, this hardbound sketchbook that I brought is fantastic, but this thing freaking weighs. I'm feeling the weight. And it's a minor annoyance. I mean, it's not that big a deal, but it's bulky, it's clunkier, it's hard. It takes more time to mess around with. Minor annoyances that add up. None of that with this. I think it's a general all-purpose sketchbook. I think it's great if you want something just to have around the house, to draw in whenever you like. It's awesome for that. It's also great for a daily carry. It's also great. It's great for sketching in the field. Also the lying flat thing, I cannot emphasize enough. If you want to set up an easel, right, pop this open on the easel and have it there flat. You might take a clip or something to hold this back, but I don't even really think you're going to need that. It's great for that. Also, being out in the field, I should add, very easy to fold it over like that. Just makes it smaller, easier to hold when you're drawing, right? Nice, solid surface on which to draw. Thus, at the moment, right, it's my favorite sketchbook for these reasons. I think it's really excellent. Would highly recommend it. So I think it's worth checking out. Also, as I said, there are different sizes, and you can check those out. Let's see, this is the extra large. So there's large, there's medium, there's small, or pocket, and I will let you check out those sizes. I've mentioned them here, but I don't think it's going to make that much of an impression on you. And I don't, if you've seen sketchbooks, I think you can probably imagine the sizes. Although I do happen to have, so I have this, right, which I believe is the next size down. Let me check. I'll just give you the size on this. So this is, you're looking at probably 7. You're looking at probably 7 1/4. It looks like. Just hit the camera. So as I said, 7 1/4. 10. 7 by 10. Right. As this 8.5 by 11.5. This 7 by 10. This is also very nice. Probably my favorite for daily carry right now. So there you go. There you are. Leda Art Supply. Do an Amazon search, do a Google search, Bing search. I'm sure you'll have no problem finding it. Again, this is the extra large. This is Zeus, 160 pages. Let's see, 120 gram paper, 81 pound sketchbook paper. Quite nice. I think you'll be quite pleased if you choose to grab one. All right, so thanks a lot. Appreciate your checking out. Hope it was helpful. Let me know questions, comments, whatever in the comments section. I guess that goes without saying. Everyone says like and subscribe, so sure. Like and subscribe, that would be swell. All right, thanks for watching. Hope you're great and have an awesome day.